So this subject is so immense. It's not a small subject, it's really immense. It's talking about everything. Everything. So what the person thinks is that, or what you think is that you're somebody inside your body listening to me now. And maybe you're like, yeah, I've heard this 100 times before. Yeah, there is nobody. But still you feel like you're somebody that's watching me and experiencing me. Whereas in actuality, there is nobody. There is only this moment, right here, right now. There isn't actually somebody that came from the past, came into this moment, has all these experiences, did all these things. There is only what's happening. And that's so opposite to the way the mind thinks, because the mind and the storyteller of who you are is constantly repeating where you've been, what you've done, what you're going to do. Where are you going to go? What you think about this? There's always this voice like tuk, 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 tuk. And there's nothing wrong with the voice as such, but that voice and consciousness and your sense of being feel like that's somebody inside the body. And that somebody is controlling the body. That somebody moves the hands and moves the heads and make the looking happen. Whereas actually, life is simply happening. So everything you've ever done, everything that you're going to do has never been your will. It's been life's will. It's been a dream that you've had a will and that you've been controlling it. So even scientists say that choice is made, and then it can take up to 6 seconds for our conscious mind to actually claim the choice and to say, I'm choosing. But the choice was made 6 seconds prior to that. And why is this important to see this? It's not important that you see it, although it will relax the you understanding all these concepts and understanding that who you are isn't limited. It's a seeing that's deeper than you. It's a remembering of something that's always been there, that's been so veiled and covered by this identification with a person, that life is simply happening, and it's not good or bad or right or wrong or light or dark or this way or that way. It simply is, and it's one movement to another like a kaleidoscope. And at the same time, it's perfectly still and not happening. And that doesn't mean anything for you in your dream. So that doesn't mean anything to the person. It is absolute freedom, but it doesn't mean anything to the person. It doesn't make that person's life better. It doesn't fix like homelessness or being fired from your job or having a tumultuous relationship. Can't remember how to say that word. Tumultuous relationship. It doesn't stop that. Like, that is a happening. That's something that happens. And even if you're lost in arguments for hours and then you feel guilty about it, you might think that's your doing, but actually it couldn't have been any other way. Every time you screamed or shouted or cried or were upset, that was a happening. It wasn't your doing. You couldn't have done something differently. And that's really wonderful when you really comprehend that you're absolutely innocent. The person is innocent of everything that it's ever done. It didn't ever make a mistake. It was simply acting out. But that also means that there is no baddie. That all your dreams about those bad people out there that have hurt you, bad people, bad people, bad people, especially you're really bad, aren't really bad. It's all a thought system happening in your mind. That's not saying that we don't put people in prison. It's not denying that sometimes people need to be removed from society or need to be reconditioned in order to be more appropriate in society. It's just saying that there is not one of us that could have been any different than what we are, ever, ever. And it's all an act of love. It's like this infinite line of movement happening right back to the Big Bang. And everything that ever happened has led to this speaking now, to you sitting there now. And then the person's like, it's me, I'm sitting here, I chose to sit here. But you didn't choose to sit here, ever. You never chose to sit here, you never chose to listen, you never chose to look, you never chose to experience this life. This is such freedom when it can be heard. The person, though, can take that in a very negative way. It's like, oh, life is pointless, there's no meaning, I can't choose to do anything. But that's just taking it the baby way. Like, that's taking it like poor me and victimizing yourself. Like, life is hopeless, I'm stuck, and it's just a solar plexus out of balance. It's a story, and if you weren't victimized by this message, you'd be victimized by your partner or by something else. This is all that's ever wanted, but also not really. It's like the illusory person wants to get home because the illusory person feels uncomfortable. Actually, the illusory person wants to get to pleasure, and in pleasure it has like this feeling of being at home that it wants to get to. But at the same time, it really doesn't want to get to this because it's the death of you. It really doesn't. It's like, nah, it'll do anything to like stay alive and keep a story running. Even if it's a negative story, it doesn't care. It doesn't care actually if you're identified with a negative or positive story. Because it's not alive, it's not somebody that's there with empathy that like is separate, and it's like, oh, my poor character, I want her or him to have a really wonderful story. It's just a functioning, and most people's functioning is to have negative stories. Predominantly because the nature of our mind is to fix problems, so normally you become a problem. You got to fix you. You're a bad person, pas bien. Got to spank your bottom, bad person. And it's right here. Like, so your mind says that you're acting and that you're the size of your body, whereas in each moment it's life acting. So you might think Lisa's speaking, and even though I will say Lisa is speaking and it comes through Lisa's pattern, in actuality these words come from life, from this big expansive place that's completely impersonal. That life doesn't care, good or bad or right or wrong, doesn't care. It's just experiencing itself. It doesn't have emotions, it doesn't have empathy. It creates all of that, but it doesn't inherently have it. And it doesn't mean that it's evil or wicked. Normally we're waiting for like the big mama or the big papa to come along and like represent life itself and be like, here, dear, let me look after you. Come suckle. But life doesn't, and that's why it's so free, because it doesn't have emotions, it doesn't have feelings, it doesn't have ideas, it doesn't have anything. It's nothing. You could call it love, and in that it totally embraces every part of its creation. It doesn't leave it. It's there in everything. You know, when the world is going to shit, and when people are doing terrible things or terrible things are happening, consciousness doesn't just opt out and go, you bad children, I'm off out of here, I'm leaving you. It's there holding everything in its agony, its hells, its beauty, its divinity. The person is obsessed with divinity. We must bring forward divinity, pleasure, divinity, pleasure, divinity, pleasure, stay out pain, stay out badness. And in that it creates a super self, like a bigger self. The more it plays that game of trying to get to pleasure and avoid pain, it creates a bigger self. If you realize, or if you pay a lot of attention to yourself, you'll notice that what your mind is always thinking about is how to avoid pain or get to pleasure. And that thinking creates this self. So if you're going into a room, maybe you're thinking about how to press people or what to say, and that's about receiving pleasure. Or if you're driving home, maybe you're thinking about your dinner. That's about getting pleasure. Or if you've done something wrong, maybe you're thinking about how you can get away with it or make it better, or pick up the pieces. So if you believe that you've got this and that you understand it, you haven't got it, you don't understand it, because who would understand it and who would get it? If you think you've had awakening experiences, I mean, I know I talk about them like they're going out of fashion, but if you believe that you've had awakening experiences, just realize who knows that? Who knows it? Who's judging that? Who? Who let the dogs out? Who? So who has these experiences? Who's waking up? And that one that's telling you this constant story of where you are in the path, how many experiences you've had, how close you are, that is the very illusion, and that can't have any perspective on waking up because it's appearing inside the dream. Anything that's experienced is appearing inside the dream, and that voice that's always going on about spirituality and where you are and that you're going to get here or get there, or that you've had a bad day or a good day or this or that, notice that that is being experienced. And the experiencer is not a thing. It doesn't care. It's not judging your spiritual path or thinking you've had this awakening or that awakening. It's here in everything, in hells and heaven, in identification and non-identification. It doesn't move, and it's not a thing, and yet it's all things. So even this spiritual path that you're seeking for, see what that is. It's another form of you trying to get somewhere that's appearing in this, constantly trying to get somewhere. If I understand this, if I get this emotion, if I get to samadhi, if I have this experience, if I do that, I will arrive. But who is this I? Who? Boing, boing, whoop, boing, boing. Who is this I? Who? Who's going to get there? Who's seeing all these things? There is no I. There is just it happening. This happening. Okay. We take some questions.